Hey guys, it's Rainee Romero with the lovely law firm here for another Carolina Justice Report, and this one's a good one. We're talking all about female attorneys. Welcome back. So I am joined with attorneys Sharde Crawford, Sarah Austin, and Amy Lawrence, and we're excited about today's topic, right?
Oh,
something that doesn't get talked about all too often, right?
Yeah.
So first, you may not have seen this lovely face beside me. So this is Sharde Crawford. She is our newest member of the lovely law firm, but she's not new. She's been practicing law for over 10 years. Sharde, tell folks a little bit about where you're from, what you've been doing before coming on board with us.
I am from all over the South, but I say that I guess I got to claim South Carolina because I've been here since I was 12 years old. I've been practicing for 10 years now, and for 6 of those years, I was a public defender right here in Horry County.
Awesome. And now what are you doing with the law firm? What are you practicing?
I'll be doing personal injury as well as criminal law.
Okay. All right. And, I felt like today's topic was so kind of important because we have 3 female attorneys at the lovely law firm, and that's unusual, right?
Super unusual.
Mm-hmm. I mean, our females
it's
are
like
now
that by
higher
design.
than our males.
It's like that by design.
Yes.
Justin Lovely says that women are smarter, better multitaskers, they're better lawyers, all the above. He gets it.
Well, and what we have found is that people feel a little bit more comfortable with women. Do you agree with that?
I think so.
I think as far as clients
Clients
go, we've had some potential clients call and say they called us just because we have women attorneys and they want a woman lawyer.
Why do you think that is?
I'm not sure.
I think
I think
I think that they're also with other firms and other lawyers, they're used to being talked over, right? And used like all this legalese that people don't understand. And men love to do that, I think, more than women. And we use more plain language, and we have compassion and empathy.
It's the empathy.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's that.
Yeah.
The being able to sit down and put yourself in someone else's shoes, and really feel for a client, because we're seeing our clients at their lowest points when they're really hurting, and they want someone to listen. They want to know that someone cares,
right, and
that someone's going to give them the justice that they need.
Yeah. And of course, this isn't to bash the men out there, but it's very, I mean, I can only speak for myself. Everybody has kind of a different preference on when they're searching for a lawyer, what they're looking for. But I know for me, you really only see a lawyer once in your life, maybe more than that, if circumstances are unfortunate for you, but hopefully just once. You have some sort of catastrophic thing that happens. And when I'm looking for somebody, I want somebody who I feel comfortable with, that is approachable, that's going to kind of hold my hand, walk me through the process, break down what all these words mean, all this legal jargon, and that I also know is going to be tough on the court side, to where I know that they're going to fight for me, but they're also going to feel for me. They're also going to walk me through the process without making me feel like an idiot, like all of these things. And I think a lot of times females are very good at that, having the both sides of tough and soft, and holding the hands because of the empathy, kind of as you were saying. So I don't know. But let's give I know this is a very long answer of a question I'm about to ask, but give me a little bit of why you went into law. Sharde, I'll start with you.
Of course you had to start
with me. Of course,
I'll
start with you.
I always tell people, from the time that I was a little girl, I've always been that person who wanted to fight for the underdog. I always chose friends in school who other people didn't want to be friends with. My mom always shares the story of there was a little girl in our neighborhood who had all of her fingers were like stubs. She had gotten a staph infection in her hands as a child, and so she had lost the tips of her fingers, and she was my best friend. And even though other individuals in the neighborhood would pick on her and not want to play with her and didn't want to invite her over, I was that one who always went and was like, no, girl, come on, let's go play Barbies. Do you have a Barbie doll house? Because I don't have one. But I think that as growing up, I always wanted to fight for the underdog. I thought that lawyers were phenomenal because they had these voices, and that when they spoke, people listened. And as a 4'11", but give me 1 inch and I can say I'm 5 feet, female, I wanted to be heard, and I wanted to be able to voice those things, to be a voice for the voiceless.
Right.
So that's kind of what inspired me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a common theme, right, with attorneys, is to help people. But I love you kind of giving that visual of helping the underdog in your neighborhood who people kind of shunned.
Oh yeah,
along
but
the
I'd
way.
also fight for my sisters and stuff. That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that person. But like Amy always says, I say helping people is my jam.
Sarah, what about you?
Piggybacking off that a little bit, I had some really good government classes in high school in Fort Collins, Colorado, where, my high school was set up kind of like a college, so I got to pick my classes. And I gravitated towards all the government classes, and I realized quickly that all the people behind, anytime something changed for the better, I realized it was a lawyer. Politicians are lawyers, judges are lawyers, and then there's the lawyers in the courtrooms actually making the change. So anytime the world got better, it was always lawyers behind that movement. And so I was like, I need to be a lawyer if I'm going to do anything meaningful, and be a part of any kind of change.
I love that. Amy?
I'm going to silence my phone because my 9-year-old working mom issues right here. So I became a lawyer because my mom was a guardian ad litem when I was a little girl in North Carolina. And she had kids who were abused and broken, and she fought for them tooth and nail. And she worked with these lawyers who were her attorney. Guardian ad litems had attorneys, and so she would go in and do home studies, stuff that essentially we see in DSS issues. And she was a volunteer. It's just that's where her heart was. And so I saw her fight tirelessly for children and for women who were victims of abuse and violence. And so, and my mom brought home every kid. We were foster home certified, so. It just felt like the one way I knew I can't go and do brain surgery on anybody. I can't deal with blood, right? But what I can do is I can help people in this other way, and incite change in their life and in the system. And so, watching my mom do that is what kind of shaped me.
I love that.
To want to be a lawyer.
Well, and I just learned what a guardian ad litem is. Will you tell folks kind of what that is if they don't know?
Yeah. So in issues dealing with children, they go in and they have access to everything, stuff that even lawyers sometimes can't get a hold of. They go in and do home interviews and visits and, have this relationship with the children and figure out what's going on and try to figure out and give the court some guidance on what they think is best. They're completely neutral in the situation, and give them the guidance of what they think is best for the child and the best interest of the children. And so it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, that is powerful. I want to read a couple of statistics about, female attorneys, and this is coming from ABA Journal, and it's for nationwide, so it's not just in our area, but it says that about 23% of equity partners in the U.S. Are women, and this is from 2021, and even though women have made up at least 40% of law students for decades, there's still only 23% of the equity partners. Currently, women make up more than half of U.S. law students, but law firms aren't retaining them. And Law 360 reports that over the last 6 years, the proportion of female attorneys has increased from 34% to 37.7%, and 29.4% to 33% among non-equity partners, and then from 19.2% to 23.3% among equity partners. And minority female lawyers are also underrepresented at U.S. law schools. Women of color make up 20% of first-year law students, but they make up only 9% of all attorneys at U.S. law firms and about 3% of equity partners. So that just gives you a little bit of a visual on that. I mean, Sharde, with you being a minority, how has that kind of affected anything in your law journey? Have you kind of come against any kind of aversion to that?
Oh my goodness. Where would I even start? We don't have enough time for me to even address all of that. But when you talked about the statistics, and there being a larger percentage of African Americans who are entering into law school, but then there being such a small number. I remember when I was in law school, my legal research and writing professor, you're supposed to have blind grading But she informed me that she could see through the marker and saw my name. And, you know, in our session with each other, she was trying to convince me to drop out of school.
What?
And she's sitting there.
White or color?
She was a white female.
Okay.
And she was trying to convince me to drop out of school and tell me, you know, I was a mother when I went to law school, and, you know, just go home and be a mom. You know, that's
Why? What was her reasoning?
She didn't really have, you know, great reasoning, but there was also another I say that to say there was another Black female who was in the same section as me with the same legal research and writing teacher. And so whereas my personality was one of, girl, I don't give up. And, you know, I'm one of those people, if you tell me I can't do something, I like to prove you wrong.
Right. Double down.
And I love when someone underestimates me. I want you to, you know, so that I can come in and show you what I can do. But the other female also met with the same legal research and writing professor, and she told me that she had told her the same thing. But the sad part was that she actually dropped out of school.
Wow.
We keep in contact with each other over Facebook, but it's so sad that there is such a underrepresentation of African Americans in the legal field, as well as African American females. You know, in this county that we practice in, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of attorneys. But when you talk about African American lawyers, I don't even need all of our hands to count how many are here. You know, how many actually practice in this area. So,
and then break that down even further for female.
You know, so it's definitely that, you know, we've
thought through this, and it's like literally it all fits on one hand, and of those people on one hand, most of them don't even practice.
Yeah. So, you know, when you're going into the courtrooms, I am not immediately assumed that I am an attorney. It is oftentimes I'm believed to be the court reporter, or I'm someone's secretary, or I'm a paralegal, or even the defendant. It's never assumed, because they don't often see someone who looks like me, that I'm the attorney. And so that's one of those things where, you know, it's a bit problematic in my practice of, you know, here I am, a woman who is completely capable, who has passed the bar, who has studied, who is practicing, and yet when individuals see me, it is not, you know, assumed that I am of the likes of the other individuals who are walking into the courtroom to do the work just like I am.
How has that affected you? You know, do you thrive off that, or does that in some way, you know, make you self-conscious in any way, or make you feel
No, I tell you, it was a lot. It was very disheartening when I first started practicing. I tell people this all the time. When I first started practicing, I thought, you know what? I've arrived.
I did all the things.
I checked all the boxes. You know, I went to undergrad. I went and got an MBA. I went to law school. I didn't just do law school. I tried to excel. I graduated with honors. I got awards while I was there.
Wow, good for you.
And then I passed the bar when I was super broke the first time. And so because I did, all while being a mom. But I did this, and so I must be accepted, right? All of these doors are going to finally open for me. And they did not. Okay. I started practicing here in Horry County, and it was so sad. Amy, I don't know if I've ever told the story to Amy, so she might be hearing this for the first time. I say it to people all the time. But when I first started practicing as a private attorney here, I go into court, and you don't know where to sit. They don't teach you this in law school. They don't tell you where you need to sit. They don't tell you where to go. They don't tell you who to talk to. And so I go into Myrtle Beach Municipal, and I sat where all of the defendants sit. I didn't know any better. Okay. I sat down and I waited, because I assumed that someone would call attention to me when it was time for me to speak. And I went several times, and no one ever said to me, you know, Ms. Crawford, you're sitting in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, this is just really awkward. So one time I go to court, and Amy comes in, and she sees me sitting in the wrong spot. And she's like, what are you doing? What is your name?
I did not know Sharde.
You know, what is your name?
I knew she was very pretty.
And I
She
said,
looked
you know,
very
I'm
smart,
Sharde
and
Crawford.
she looked like a lawyer.
And she's like, aren't you Judge such and such's daughter? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, why are you sitting right here? And I was like, I'm waiting for them to call me. And she's like, this is not where lawyers sit. Come on over here, girl. Let me show you where the lawyers sit. Okay. And then she made one of the male attorneys get up, give me the seat, and said, you know, this is where you sit. And then introduced me to everybody there and brought me into the conversation. And it was on that day I was like, oh, I want to be her friend. You know, she just made me feel so welcome. And I don't know that she intentionally did that, you know, but here it is 10 years later, and I still tell that story to people when they ask me, you know, why did I come and work here? Because you saw that, and it probably was such a natural thing for you, to just bring me into the fold. But here I was feeling so disheartened that I wanted to quit practicing law. And I remember, I won't say anymore. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, it's great.
But I had gone to a federal sentencing guidelines CLE, and I sat next to a female attorney who had been practicing in federal court for like 25 years, and she was crocheting next to me. And I expressed to her how disheartened I was. And she said to me, please don't give up. The law needs women. Federal court needs women. And she said, if you give the law 10, it will give you 20. And I didn't know what she meant by that. And I asked her, and she clarified, and she said, if you can just make it 10 years, I promise you your career is going to fly by and it's going to give you 20. But we need you. Please stay. And that meant a lot.
You're gonna make everybody cry before we can even talk, Sharde.
sorry,
I got goosebumps,
Sorry,
tearing
guys.
up. Amy, for heaven's sake, I won't ask her a question for another couple minutes. But thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a personal question, and it's your own personal journey. So I appreciate that, because who knows who's watching, right? Who needs to hear that, right? You know, Sarah, I'll move to you and just ask, obviously it's a different perspective because you're not a woman of color, but you are a female. So have you kind of run into anything along your journey as a female that kind of has stood out to you?
Yeah, I think I've been lucky that when I started practicing law, it was with Amy. So I never had moments of Sharde being lost in court and sort of being looked over. I've had a few, but right when I started, Amy took me in and was like, this is Sarah, she's sitting here, you know, meet everybody. So I didn't have to feel that, and I'm lucky. I know I'm lucky. But there's been plenty of times where I'm the court reporter. I've been mistaken for the defendant as well. Or the paralegal is most often. And I think that's because I look younger, and I'm probably a lot younger than the other people in the room. And so
She's
that's
also the smartest.
that's challenging at times, but I've learned to sort of deal with it. And now there was recently an out-of-state attorney I was on the phone with, and I always get paralegal a little bit after they don't really like where I'm going with the conversation. They know we're going to start disagreeing, and so they're like, well, are you the paralegal? Who's the attorney? Like, they're trying to escalate it. And so now when I get, are you the paralegal? I just respond with, no, are you? And then the phone just goes silent. Why would I be the paralegal? I'm a man. And so that's sort of solved the problem. Now I just sort of make it as awkward as possible.
Yeah.
You know, if they're going to go there,
I love that.
we're just going to sit
I'm
in it
gonna
for
go
a
with you.
We're going to
Exactly.
sit in it for a moment and think about what we've done before we move on here.
That's the best. It's the best.
super
Yeah, so I'm
funny.
learning to have fun with it. But also I think I've only been practicing for 5 years. I think it's less than 5 years I've been practicing, but I've been with the lovely law firm 5 years, I think yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So-
Congrats.
The congratulations goes to us.
Congrats.
As I get
Everybody. It's a
yeah, as
community.
I get to know, as I
celebration.
get working on these cases more and more involved in the community, I think it's happening less and less,
Yeah.
at least in Horry County, but it's still all over the place. It's in the courtroom all the time, and it's a lot of times it's clients or defendants, you know, that we've named in the lawsuit that are looking down at me like, who is this little girl that's asking all these questions? And I'm
The one
like,
that's going to take all your money and stick you in the box where you need to belong.
yeah, I'm happy to ask them.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
like Sharde, like, please underestimate me, you
Yes.
know, and just
Yeah.
and look over me and ignore me because all this is on the record. and
Yeah,
we're coming back
you
to
about to
it.
go down. Well, Amy, I mean, I'm sure you have a little bit of a different perspective because both of these ladies have been helped by you. Did you have somebody to help you, or have you run into things? I know Sharde was talking about being the short little thing, and of course you can relate to that. You know, you're like,
I got 1 inch on her.
you tend to call yourself kind of like, you know, the bulldog that comes in, kind of underestimated as well. Tell me a little bit about kind of what you've gone through.
I remember when I first started practicing law, Justin and I were at a wedding. For those of you who don't know, Justin's my husband. Some people don't, new to this game, don't realize that we're married. And we are equal partners in the lovely law firm, 50-50, which is very surprising that when I meet other husbands and wives, the husband always wants 51%. That was never even a question. Justin just filled it all out. Like,
Yeah.
wow. He is a keeper. But I remember we were at this wedding, and I just started practicing law, and I was pregnant, and there was this older man there, and we were in Tennessee, in Nashville, and he said, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm an attorney. I'm a lawyer." And he said, "A lady lawyer." Like, it was like the craziest thing he'd ever heard. I was like, "Yeah, they let us vote and everything. Can you believe it?" Like, but I bet he said lady lawyer 30 times. A real life lady lawyer. I was like, yeah, we're like on the Supreme Court and everything. Or I got a cashmere sweater made, or not the sweater made, but I got it embroidered, and it says lady lawyer, like right here on the corner, because that made me giggle so much. You know, I didn't have anybody, and I knew what that felt like. Mm-hmm. And I remember, so my mom, we talked about my mom being a guardian ad litem, but that was a volunteer job. She was the CFO of a very, very large corporation. And she used to tell me, "Amy, it's a man's world." And that made me so mad. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't even know what that meant. Because she and my dad made me feel like I could be the president of the United States if I wanted to be. And I still believe that. If I really want to be president of the United States, I could be. I had parents that empowered me in that way. Mm-hmm. But my mom would tell me as I got older, it's a man's world, it's a man's world. And she would tell me these stories about, like, other presidents of company would come in and they wouldn't negotiate with her on things because
they wanted to talk to the man.
Because she had a vagina. That is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. Like, I couldn't even wrap my mind around it. And then I became a lawyer. And reality in life smacked me in the face. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I worked for a guy who told sexual jokes every day, and you know, did and said things that weren't appropriate or just plain wrong. And I realized that's what I had a judge, you know, after I'd had a baby, I'd still on maternity leave. I'd had a baby 20 days prior, make me come to court. I was cut from hip to hip. Had an emergency C-section. I had milk leaking from my breast, and told me to get my ass to court. And when I got there, he yelled at me for not wearing a jacket. And it wasn't out of disrespect. It's because I couldn't fit in one that I owned, you know? And so I have had all these moments. I never want anybody else to feel like that again, you know?
Yeah.
And Justin watched me go through those things, and he can't go beat up everybody, you know? Even when he wants to, he can't go beat up everybody. And so he's watched me, and so, like, he doesn't want any other woman to ever feel like that either.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do want to give props, you know, to Justin, because he embraces female attorneys and always says positive things, complimentary things, respectful things, listens to our female clients, you know, with the empathy that you ladies would give them as well. And so that's unusual, and I'm grateful that that's
it's so
part
like
of the
that. You
lovely
know,
law
I had
firm.
someone say, an owner of a company, like, "Oh, that's just how men talk." And I said, "My husband doesn't talk like that."
No, he
He's
definitely
never
does not.
made anybody, never made a comment, sexual or otherwise, that made any woman in our office feel uncomfortable, and that he would not say in front of his own mother or his own grandmother. So no, that's not how men talk. That's how some men talk.
That's right.
But that's not how they're supposed to talk.
And
Very
also,
true.
it is awesome that Amy's a partner, because there's nothing like more empowering than there are situations where you're like, I do have to call my boss. And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm calling my boss. And then it's like, Amy gets on the phone.
Yes.
And I'm just
Like, oh no, you go, you do that, you go fix that.
you expected.
Yeah.
Like, here she is.
Well, here's a great example of the lovely law firm. Okay, so it's 9:30 at night, 10 o'clock. Got the babies in bed. I'm scrolling Instagram, and Sharde had just started with us. She'd been with us a week, and her baby. How old was Angel?
She's 4 months.
Okay, so she was for her 4-month shots, 3-month shots. So she had to have her shots, and she is FaceTiming while with her and her husband Dennis is very capable and all those things, but I'm seeing the screenshot of her like FaceTiming the doctor and her baby who was having to get its shots. And the next morning I said, why did you not go to that doctor's appointment? Are you kidding me? No offense to daddies, but you cannot be trusted with shots and doctors. And she's like, well, I just started. And I was like, no. Let me just tell you something. It is a requirement of this job. You will be fired if you do not go to your baby shots. Like, we do not miss those moments. And that's just how we feel. Like, I mean, a big part of our office is breastfeeding. And we have a place for you guys to do that and feel comfortable. And it's, it's really nice to have another woman in the office that understands.
Yes.
Well, I know that was, even when I was being hired, I sat down with you, Amy, and Justin, and I had just had a baby. So my baby's a little over a year now, but she was, 7-8 months then or something. And I was still nursing. And I remember that exact scenario where it was kind of like, I just want you to be aware that I do have a baby and I am nursing. And, and Amy was like, I'm a mother. He's a father. Like, your kids will always like come first, like you will always be front and center at their plays and at their, sporting events and whatever.
You don't have to clock out to do that. I will pay you to go to your baby's things. Like, we're not going to worry that we're not going to be able to make our house payments because of.
And how unusual and amazing and wonderful. You know what I mean? I mean, that kind of stuff is just not. At a previous job that I had, I mean, both of my little ones, I was gone 2 weeks and back. That was my maternity leave, 2 weeks, and I was back. And I had an emergency C-section.
That's insane.
And
that's insane. That's insanity.
And then be back with my second one. And so, it just sucks.
But also the strength of a woman.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Only.
Well, everybody told me, they were like, there's no way you'll be back. There's no way. Like, you need to make other plans. There's no way you'll be back. And I was like, oh, I'll be back. I'll be back at 2 weeks. You watch. And I was. And I was like, all right, let's move on. Yeah. So we're just grateful for the precedents that you've set with the law firm and making families a priority.
I think if we don't, the reason why we're having this conversation is we don't talk about it, we can't make it any better, right?
Right, yeah.
That in which we don't acknowledge, we cannot change. And so we're able to do that and still be profitable, right? We still get to keep the humanity of our office and appreciate that your mothers and wives and girlfriends and women and all those things that make life and still make a living, right? We're all still profitable. I didn't have to not take a paycheck for you to go to your, this is all possible. And I think a lot of times business people think that that's not the reality of life, but it really is. It really is.
Well, and I think also to be kind of a voice, kind of like Sharde was saying, of no, women are needed in the legal field. And yes, you can do this. And you did it with a new baby and being pregnant. And, I think it's also to be kind of a voice of like, see, this can be done. You can do it. You can push forward. We need you. We need female attorneys. Stick it out, type of thing.
Stick it out. The women's voices matter, right? I mean, we're underrepresented, and it literally breaks my heart. My nieces, and all the little girls in my life, and y'all have probably figured this out, I give them a lot of like female empowerment gifts. I bought out Judge Barbie, like I bought them out and give them to all the little girls that I know in my life. And for them, I buy them these little shirts that says, "Forget princess, you can call me Your Honor." And it's got like all the female Supreme Court justices on it. And so like I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it best, when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court when there's 9? Because no one batted an eye when there were 9 men on there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to kind of the statistics that were provided, more than half of law students are female, but they're not being retained and they're dropping way down in actual law firms. Why do you think that is?
I think probably a lot of them give up. Like Sharde had her moments where she wanted to give up more than once. I mean, she talked about it in law school and then again as practicing. And I think that the answer, so many women before us have fought harder and endured worse things than us now to get to this point where we're complaining about these things that we are today, and hopefully they get better. And I think that gets better by women sticking it out, because look how Amy stuck it out and helped Sharde, and then helped me so that I didn't even have to experience what Sharde experienced. And then hopefully I can pass that on to the next woman who follows. And if we all just kind of help each other, because it is rare, you know, I've worked other jobs before where, you know, as a woman, when you're being looked down on, you can feel it almost instantly. I mean, you can feel it over a telephone.
Right, yeah.
And for me to, in other jobs, to have to explain, like, no, this happened, and I know it's because I'm a woman. We don't have to explain that to Amy. She just like, yeah, I get it. That's messed up. And so for women just to be able to relate to each other on that level and help each other navigate those situations and so it gets better for everybody, I think we all really have to. And we shouldn't have to push through those moments.
Right.
That we shouldn't even be in those situations, but we're not even close to where we should be. And we're all going to have to keep sticking it out and keep fighting and keep looking for the Shardes sitting in the wrong spot and introducing the new girl as this is a lawyer, this is who she is.
Yeah.
And just kind of carrying each other so we can all get better.
Yeah. Would you say you've noticed a change from since when you started to now, even a slight change in accepting female lawyers?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not where it needs to be, but it's gotten better.
Yeah.
I think a big part of why women don't continue the practice of law is also because they're mothers and they don't have bosses like Amy and Justin who say, no, you will be at your baby's shots and you will be front and row when you're doing the Seussical musical, right?
Yeah. You got to choose, right? Family or work.
And it shouldn't be a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of like what makes us so freaking good at what we do. You know what I mean? It's that passion of like the mama bear in us or whatever. It's like you shouldn't have to choose. You can have all the we can do all those things. You know what I mean? I can still be a great, competent, ass-kicking lawyer and a mom at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I've had conversations with two women who are mothers who want to go to law school and they don't know if they can do it. And I always tell the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who had 2 children and a husband with cancer, and she did his homework and her homework.
Yeah.
And became a Supreme Court justice. So I'm always like, if Ruth can do it, I mean, we can do it.
You got
and
this,
now,
boo.
if Sharde can do it,
That's
we
right.
have her in the office. You know, go talk to Sharde and have her explain. You know, it's going to be way harder, but you can absolutely do it and probably do it better than all the men in your class.
Way better.
Well, and that kind of, brings me to my next kind of question. Were there women kind of famous attorneys or just women that maybe that inspired you guys to become female attorneys?
I mean, I wouldn't say they inspired me to become an attorney, but they inspired me to keep being an attorney. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Big fan. Her story of how she helped her husband while he was going to his classes and hers, taking his notes, doing his homework, helping him, it can be done, or watching Gloria Allred fight for women victims of sexual assault and harassment and stand up and say that's not okay. Or, Judge Childs, who is getting ready to be on the Court of Appeals, federal court judge, who is, if you've ever watched her speak, she does these great symposiums and stuff about domestic violence situations and laws and how to help women and all. Yes, that's what keeps the light under you and the fire in your belly when you see other women not just doing it, but doing it really well and inspiring us to all to raise the bar.
Trying to keep up.
Yeah.
But also not even famous women.
Right.
Yeah.
Just even local women in our county. You see what they're doing. I know Amy, but there's a network of women lawyers.
Amazing lawyers.
And we all sort of, and I don't know how recent it's been. It wasn't there when I first started. I think it was brewing. But even statewide now, there's a network of women lawyers who are really just helping each other and helping carry each other and that kind of stuff. And those women inspire me all the time.
Yeah.
I tell you, Jennifer Wilson, she's our retired Myrtle Beach municipal judge. I babysat her kids when they were younger, and she's an attorney and was married
Total
at that
badass.
time.
Total badass.
At that time, she was married to an attorney as well. And so here I was, this little girl keeping their kids in their very lovely home. And I saw them and I said, I want that.
Yeah.
And she looked like you.
I want that. What do you do?
Yeah.
And she sat down and she talked to me and was like, this is what I do. And this was my education. And this is the type of law I practiced.
Wow.
And I'll say
That's
this,
awesome.
she wrote my recommendation letters for law school. for legal positions afterwards. She did my character and fitness for the bar. And here's this person who's like always just kept this steady guiding hand. And
Love that.
you know, she's not in anybody's national news, but she was right here, you know, inspiring me. And I don't even know if she knew it.
I love
She was
that.
always so good to me. She was always so good to me. She was always the first one to congratulate me on a big verdict, and to see the things, and not even just the big things, the little things too, and always lifting other women up. And we don't get that very often, you know.
Yeah.
So it's exciting
Yeah.
when you get to see it up close and personal.
Well, and you said your mom was a judge, right?
Father.
Father.
Your father was a judge. Did that have
Is.
any? Is a judge. Does that have any impact on you becoming?
Yeah, he became one when I was 16.
Okay.
And so I got to see, you know, him get sworn in and go on the bench, and saw the interactions of the legal community, and his best friend is an attorney. So we had close, you know, family ties to it. And then I did, you know, mock trial and things like that when I was in high school. So that really like kind of gave me that fire
Yeah.
underneath me.
I want to read off just a short list of kind of some female attorneys that you may recognize their names, and tell me if I butcher any of these names. But we talked about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Hillary Clinton, Sandra Day O'Connor. And feel free to interrupt if you want to say anything about these people.
First female Supreme Court justice.
Sonia
Sotomayor.
Sotomayor. She knew I was going to mess that up. Elizabeth Warren, Michelle Obama, Judith Sheindlin, I think is how you pronounce
Judge
it.
Judy.
Judge Judy. That's how we all know her, right? So Judge Judy, which I think did have an impact on a lot of women
Absolutely.
watching her.
A woman on the bench, whether it's on TV, especially because it's on TV, it shows all the little girls in the world that they can be on a bench too, and you know.
Yes, sir.
And she was a tough chick too.
Woman judge.
She's a great attorney.
in
Yeah.
public.
So smart.
I don't
Yeah.
know much about Judge
When I
Judy.
was a little girl, my mom took me to see Hillary Clinton speak at Florida A&M University, which is a historically black college in Tallahassee, Florida. And I was probably like 9 years old, and I was just so fascinated with her, the way that she spoke. And the way that she inspired the crowd. And at the end of it, I don't know if you know anything about Florida A&M, but their mascot is a rattler. And so they make this symbol for their mascot. And at the end of it, at the end of this beautiful speech that she did, she made the rattler symbol, which is like this. And I was just in awe, you know. And so I go home and I start doing all the, you know, researching, which I don't know if we had internet when I was 9. I don't know. But I'm like,
in her pantsuit.
Encyclopedia Britannica.
But going back to what Sarah had said, I did all this research to find out that she was a lawyer. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, if she's kind of cool and, you know, if she's a lawyer, then I should probably be that too.
Yeah, I should be
know?
that.
Yeah.
I want to do the Rattler symbol.
And say what you want about Hillary Clinton politically, but
Yeah.
as the first woman to run for president,
Yeah.
I think that will always be inspiring, just because look how long it took
Right.
for a woman to run for president.
Right.
And all the things that she had to endure, people criticizing her personal life,
Her hair.
everything she wore, all that stuff. I think all women kind of related
Well,
to.
and how interesting is that? We really don't criticize what the male's wardrobe is. Like, you know, I mean,
Nobody's ever looked at a man and said, "Look at that hair."
Look.
I mean, is he even a real lawyer?
I saw something on the internet, I think it was today, and it was like another female attorney posted, I'm wearing the same dress that I wore to court for the last 3 Mondays, and I felt self-conscious about it. But then I remembered that the male attorneys wear the same suit every single day.
Every single day.
and they rotate too.
So I think I'm going to wear it all week. And I was like, she should.
Yeah.
Because it's just so much more difficult, I think, for women. Just
Yeah.
we're already fighting so much. And the first thing is like, what do you look like?
I saw a news article. Barack Obama had spoken. It was after his presidency, and he talked about how Michelle was criticized about every little thing that she wore. And then he said while they were criticizing her about every single gown that she wore, he wore the exact same tuxedo to every single event. And he said not one for the entirety of his presidency. And he said not one person, not one news outlet ever commented on it. And he said, and that should show you something.
Must be nice to have a penis.
Right.
I just wish we could have a uniform.
I kind of want to Steve Jobs it and just wear a black turtleneck and jeans.
Yeah. Just pick
fly,
one
though.
thing and go with it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, of course, the list goes on and on. There's a lot more female attorneys who have done great things and are very well known. But I know we're running a little long here, so I kind of want to end on maybe just a piece of advice for women who may be in law school, or maybe they have just graduated and they're about to get into the workforce, of what you would say to them past kind of keep pushing.
When there are 9, there's never going to be enough of us, and I don't know. I just hope that other women, despite the obstacles and issues and barriers that may be placed in their way, that we as women reach out, give our hand to them, and, show them the way that they can come into this and to not give up.
Mm-hmm. And also don't be afraid to, it's like when you're coming out of law school or when you're thinking about going into law school, it can be so scary just to like reach out to a lawyer. But if you just pick any woman lawyer, 99.9% of them, and say, look, I'm a little scared about this. I'm worried about this. Can you help me? Almost all of them are going to respond. And then maybe even help carry you, the way Amy's carried me, and show you the road and help you even more than you would expect. So don't be afraid to reach out to other women, because most of them they've been through what you've been through and they're ready to help.
We've had friends that were going to try their first case, and we're like, I don't know anything about this case, but I'll come sit beside of you. No, you're not doing it by yourself.
Just to make you look like you're a big team.
Yeah.
Big team.
I love that.
It's going to be good.
I love that. Amy, do you have any?
Yeah, I think the thing that we struggle with as women, and I never hear men say this, and maybe they think it, but they just don't say it. But like they're always like, I need this work-life balance, and there is no balance. Like people are like, how do you do it all? You don't do it all. Anybody who tells you they do is lying. There are moments where I am the best lawyer and I'm the worst mom. There are days where I am the best wife and mom, and it takes a toll on my practice. My kids, I didn't spend a lot of time with them, like one-on-one time with them this summer, because we tried a lot of cases, and they spent a lot of time at Camp Mimi Papa with my parents, and they really just wanted some alone time and one-on-one time with us. And so Justin and I booked a last-minute vacation last week and just took off and ran and did the practice of law suffered just a little, maybe, but I came back better than ever. Feeling that well has been filled, with my babies, and they're 9 and 11, but they're my babies. I think that's not the reality of life. And once you kind of wrap your mind around is that there's really no balance, that you can't do it all, that, some balls that you're juggling are rubber and some are glass. And really the trick to life is figuring out which ones are glass and knowing the ones you can't drop and knowing the ones you can.
What are your priorities?
Yeah.
And just always kind of coming back to the center of like what's important, and balance isn't the word, but just, trying to do the best you can is okay. That's okay.
I love that. Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies, for chatting about this. I feel like this is such a needed topic to talk about, and you each have such unique perspectives of your own journey at different times, and I think that's really cool too. So again, this is not to bash any male attorneys or anything. There are some great ones that we know and love, of course.
Amazing ones.
But this is more to share their journey and also encourage other female attorneys. So thank you so much again for watching the Carolina Justice Report. We release new episodes every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Be sure to go back and watch some of our previous one where we kind of touch on some of these subjects, as well as some hot news topics in the news. And you can find us anywhere that you consume your media. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course, online at justiceislovely.com. We're everywhere you can find us. So thanks so much for watching today, and let us know if you have any questions. You can let us know in the comments. We'd be happy to respond to you. We'll see you next time.
When life gets